Welcome back to Hannity. Tim Allen is one of Hollywood's biggest stars, and his hit show, Last Man Standing, returns for its now 5th season on ABC tomorrow night.
Tim Allen has been a Hollywood fixture for decades, from his iconic role in Home Improvement to voicing Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story.
Come on, Sheriff. There's a kid over in that house who needs us. Now let's get you out of this thing.
Known for his sharp wit and no-nonsense attitude, he's earned praise from many co-stars, but not all. Over the years, whispers of on-set tension and behind-the-scenes drama have surfaced.
He's got a conservative blog, a web blog. He just trashed Hillary Clinton a little bit, took a nice shot at her in that clip.
Hinting at conflicts with certain cast members. But who stood out as the one co-star he absolutely couldn't stand? At 71, Allen finally reveals the name, and the reason may shock you. Tim Allen, from stand-up stages to Hollywood success. Tim Allen's journey to stardom kicked off in the early 90s when he landed the lead role in Home Improvement, an ABC sitcom that skyrocketed him to fame. As Tim the Toolman Taylor, he mastered the art of blending slapstick humor with a warm, fatherly presence, an irresistible combination that kept audiences glued to their screens. The show became one of the highest-rated programs of the decade,
Come on in and meet my grumpy husband.
transforming Allen from a rising stand-up comic into one of television's most recognizable faces. His comedic timing, combined with his signature grunts and over-the-top masculinity, became his calling card, setting him apart in the entertainment industry. His television success quickly opened the doors to Hollywood. He took on major film roles, most notably as Scott Calvin in the Santa Claus franchise, and the voice of Buzz Lightyear in Pixar's Toy Story series.
Just a toy, a stupid, little, insignificant toy.
By the late 90s, Allen was firmly established as one of the biggest names in comedy, known for his family-friendly charm and undeniable screen presence. He had a formula, an everyman persona that appealed to middle America, and he knew how to work it. But despite the success, Allen's sharp tongue and unapologetic humor made him both beloved and, at times, polarizing. Allen has never been one to shy away from saying exactly what's on his mind, even if it ruffles feathers. His comedic style leans heavily on sarcasm and blunt observations, a trait that has earned him both admiration and criticism. He acknowledged his no-nonsense attitude by joking, "I'm kind of an a-hole in the morning, but that's because I'm old and tired." That straightforward approach carried over into his work relationships, where he was known to be both generous and supportive to some co-stars, while others found him far more difficult to work with. Before his rise to television superstardom, Allen's comedic journey began in the bustling Detroit stand-up scene. He developed a niche that played to traditional masculine stereotypes: men doing manly things, women disapproving, and the now iconic grunting sound that became synonymous with his comedy.
Well, you've heard of junk in the trunk. You've got a whole garage sale going on back there.
Some critics have pointed out that his material often revolves around the same joke. But if it works, why change it? The audience laughed every time, and Allen ran with it to Hollywood. His dedication to his comedic style paid off, landing him gigs at the legendary Comedy Store in Los Angeles. At the time, stand-up comedians were breaking into acting, proving that comedy could be a gateway to mainstream television and film. But Allen was fully aware of his limitations as an actor. He once admitted that he could only convincingly play characters who weren't too far from his real personality. It's no surprise that before hitting it big with Home Improvement, his only real acting credit was playing a baggage handler in Tropical Snow, a little-known film about cocaine smuggling. Though Allen's career flourished, his straightforward personality and strong opinions sometimes led to tension on set. Some of his past co-stars have spoken highly of his generosity and humor, while others have hinted at behind-the-scenes conflicts. But what are these co-stars said about him? Stay tuned, because the answer might just shock you. Behind the behind-the-scenes drama and co-star clashes, Tim Allen has built a reputation as one of Hollywood's most recognizable comedic actors. But not everyone who has worked with him has fond memories. Over the years, Several co-stars have spoken out about their experiences with him, and while some describe him as a seasoned professional, others paint a very different picture. Some have found him difficult, dismissive, or outright rude, leading to friction behind the scenes. One of the most recent and widely publicized complaints came from actress Casey Wilson, who worked with Alan on The Santa Clauses. She didn't mince words when describing her experience, calling it the worst she's ever had with a co-star. Wilson recalled being stunned by how dismissive and unkind Alan was toward her, saying, "He treated me like the help." Having worked with numerous actors throughout her career, she had never encountered anything quite like it. She specifically recalled a moment on set where she and Alan were filming a scene together. In the sequence, her character, an older version of lactose-intolerant Sarah, wakes up in the middle of the night to find Santa, played by Alan, in her home. Mistaking him for an intruder, she begins throwing things at him in a panic. However, Alan wasn't pleased with her performance. Rather than addressing her directly, he walked over to a producer standing nearby and, within earshot of Wilson, complained, "You've got to tell her to stop stepping on my lines." The interaction left Wilson feeling disrespected and frustrated, turning what should have been an exciting opportunity into a disappointing ordeal. But Wilson's experience is far from the only instance of tension between Alan and his co-stars. Patricia Richardson, who played his wife, Jill Taylor, on Home Improvement, also had her share of difficulties. While she and Alan had a strong professional dynamic on screen, their working relationship wasn't without its struggles. One of the biggest points of contention was the significant pay gap between them. Richardson, who played an equally important role in the show's success, eventually chose to leave before a planned 9th season, citing concerns about fairness. Despite their differences, Richardson has defended Alan on occasion, particularly when his off-color sense of humor raised eyebrows. However, she has acknowledged that working with him wasn't always easy. "I loved Tim," she once said in an interview. "He was funny and made me laugh a lot, but he had a lot of issues." While their disagreements never escalated into outright hostility, it was clear that behind the scenes, things weren't always as smooth as they appeared on screen. Another Home Improvement star who had a complicated relationship with Alan was Jonathan Taylor Thomas. As the beloved Randy Taylor, Thomas was one of the most popular young actors of the 90s. However, as the show neared its later seasons, he made the difficult decision to leave early and focus on his education, a choice that reportedly didn't sit well with Alan. At the time, Thomas was at the height of his career, and many questioned why he would walk away from such a successful show. But for him, the decision was about prioritizing his future. He later explained, "I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to be with my friends, go to football games, and just have a normal experience." While his reasoning seemed understandable to most, Alan took it personally. Years later, Alan admitted he was disappointed that Thomas never returned for the series finale, despite being invited. "He was a smart kid, but he just disappeared," Alan said, hinting at lingering frustration. While their relationship never turned into an outright feud, the tension was apparent. With so many behind-the-scenes stories about Tim Allen's working relationships, it raises an important question. Was Home Improvement the only set where conflicts arose? Or were there even bigger clashes waiting to be uncovered? Stay tuned to find out. Tim Allen's Home Improvement era. The comedy, the success, and the legacy. Tim Allen became a household name thanks to his unforgettable role as Tim the Toolman Taylor on Home Improvement. From 1991 to 1999, he starred in 204 episodes of what many consider one of the greatest sitcoms of its time. Much like Jerry Seinfeld and other comedians before him, Allen's comedy roots played a huge role in shaping the show's humor and structure. But unlike the polished world of Seinfeld's observational comedy,
It's not that. She's smart, insightful, and funny.
Allen's brand of humor was rougher, louder, and built around his everyman persona. Throughout the 90s, Allen's signature caveman-like grunts and comedic take on masculinity became a staple of television, drawing millions of viewers each week. Home Improvement consistently landed in the top 10 most-watched shows, proving that its formula, however predictable, was a winning one. If you rewatch the early seasons, you'll notice the show follows a very specific pattern. Each episode begins with Tim dealing with a problem at home, usually involving his mischievous sons, or an argument with his strong-willed wife, Jill. His solution? Escape to the set of his Tool Time show, where he entertains audiences with his love for power tools.
But look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Look how easy that takes it off.
And harmlessly bullies his kind-hearted assistant, Al Borland. But no matter how much he immerses himself in work, his real-life problems always find their way onto the show. Inevitably, Tim's overconfidence leads him to some ridiculous mishap, breaking something, injuring himself, or learning the hard way that he's bitten off more than he can chew. When he's at his lowest, he seeks wisdom from his mysterious, ever-insightful neighbor, Wilson, whose face is always partially hidden behind a fence. Armed with Wilson's philosophical advice, Tim returns home, apologizes to Jill, and admits that, once again, she was right. The episode ends with a heartfelt moment, followed by a blooper reel over the credits. This simple but effective structure worked because it gave audiences a familiar rhythm while delivering fresh laughs. Home Improvement wasn't just about slapstick humor and tool-related disasters. It struck a balance between goofy comedy and heartwarming moments. Tim Taylor was a bumbling, accident-prone husband, but he wasn't a caricature. He had depth, and his character resonated with millions of men who saw a little of themselves in him. He was flawed, stubborn, and often clueless, but at his core, he was a good guy who loved his family. While Home Improvement leaned heavily on its comedic beats, some moments showcased Alan's surprising range as an actor. One particularly emotional scene in Season 2, Episode 9, revealed a deeper side of Tim's character. As he fought back tears while reminiscing about his late father, audiences saw that his obsession with cars and manly things was rooted in something far more personal. It wasn't just about being a stereotypical guy's guy. It was about holding on to the things that reminded him of his dad. The show became so successful that when ABC announced its final season, the network was desperate to keep it going. Executives offered Alan a staggering $50 million to return for a 9th season, but he turned it down, deciding it was time to move on. Despite the show's conclusion, its impact was undeniable. Over the years, Home Improvement has racked up an impressive list of nominations and awards. Tim Allen won a Golden Globe for Best Actor and took home multiple People's Choice Awards. The show itself received 7 Emmy nominations, though it never secured a win. But even with all the accolades, Home Improvement's true legacy lies in the way it captured the everyday struggles of family life, packaged with humor that still resonates today. So how did Tim Allen transition from a stand-up comedian making audiences laugh in clubs to one of Hollywood's most successful actors? And what made him stand out in an industry filled with comedic talents? Stay tuned as we dive into his rise to stardom. Tim Allen, a journey from darkness to stardom. Tim Allen's journey to stardom is anything but ordinary. Before becoming a beloved household name, he had to navigate a rocky road filled with challenges, mistakes, and hard-earned redemption. Born in 1953 in Denver, Colorado, young Tim Allen's life took a tragic turn at just 11 years old when his father was killed in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. The loss shattered his world, forcing his mother to uproot the family and move to Michigan. There, Tim struggled to find his footing, often getting into trouble as he tried to process his grief. As a teenager, Allen turned to alcohol, and soon, that habit spiraled into a full-blown addiction. To support his drinking, he ventured into something far riskier: selling drugs. What started as a way to fund his vices quickly escalated, and by the late 1970s, Tim Allen had gone far beyond petty troublemaking. On October 2, 1978, everything came crashing down. Allen was caught red-handed at a Michigan airport with over a pound of cocaine. Unbeknownst to him, the person he was attempting to sell it to was an undercover cop. With that single mistake, he found himself staring down the possibility of life in prison. Facing an uncertain future, Allen made a difficult choice. He cooperated with authorities, providing information on other drug dealers in exchange for a reduced sentence. Instead of life behind bars, he served 2 years and 4 months. Though prison was a harsh reality, it became the wake-up call he desperately needed. Ironically, it was behind bars that Alan discovered the power of comedy as more than just entertainment. It was survival. Surrounded by hardened criminals, he had no real means to defend himself, so he used the only tool he had: humor. His quick wit and sharp jokes won over fellow inmates, turning potential threats into an unexpected audience. Instead of being seen as an easy target, he became the guy who made people laugh, a currency more valuable than anything behind prison walls. When Alan walked out of prison in 1981, he was determined to turn his life around. No more reckless decisions, no more illegal shortcuts. He would put his energy into making people laugh. But this time, on the right side of the law, he poured himself into stand-up comedy, honing his craft on the Detroit comedy circuit before making his way to Los Angeles. It was there that he caught his big break, setting the stage for an incredible entertainment career. But his struggles weren't entirely behind him. In 1998, years after becoming a TV sensation, he was arrested once again, this time for driving under the influence. The incident landed him a year of probation and a court-mandated stay in an alcohol abuse clinic. It was yet another harsh lesson, but one he took seriously. Since then, Alan has remained sober for over 2 decades, something he speaks about with pride. Tim Allen's past is a reminder that redemption is possible, no matter how dark the path once was. From prison cells to primetime television, from selling drugs to selling laughs, his transformation is nothing short of remarkable. But what about the people he has worked with over the years? While some co-stars have had less than positive experiences, others have spoken highly of their time with Alan. One such person is Nancy Travis, who shared the screen with him on Last Man Standing. But what was their dynamic really like? And how did their professional relationship compare to others in Alan's career? Stay tuned as we dive into Nancy Travis and other positive co-star relationships. Tim Allen, a Hollywood enigma, beloved co-star or difficult to work with. Throughout his career, Tim Allen has built a reputation as a sharp-witted, sometimes unpredictable actor. While some co-stars describe working with him as a pleasure, others recall moments of tension. His on-set interactions have sparked both praise and criticism, painting a complex picture of the man behind the laughter. Nancy Travis, who shared the screen with Alan on Last Man Standing, had nothing but good things to say about him. She described their working relationship as effortless, emphasizing his professionalism, generosity, and impeccable comedic timing. "I love working with Tim," she once said. "He's very generous as an actor and very collaborative." Their chemistry on screen mirrored a strong off-screen camaraderie, so much so that Travis compared it to a family bond.
Really, you two are bonding over how much you hate bonding?
Their dynamic was a key factor in the show's longevity, running successfully for 9 seasons, a clear indication that Alan wasn't universally seen as difficult to work with. But Last Man Standing wasn't the only project where Alan left a lasting impression. His work in Toy Story alongside Tom Hanks also reflected a strong partnership. Hanks, known for his affable personality, often joked about Alan's sense of humor but never suggested any major conflicts. Instead, he recognized Alan's ability to contribute to something greater than himself. Their collaboration across multiple Toy Story films spanned decades, cementing their bond as one of the most memorable duos in animated history. Even Patricia Richardson, who played his wife on Home Improvement, had a complicated yet ultimately supportive view of Alan.
Got to be something in here you can get rid of.
Yeah, but I stayed married to it because of the kids.
Though they had their share of disputes, particularly regarding pay and creative control, Richardson repeatedly defended Alan. She acknowledged that his humor could sometimes push boundaries but insisted that he was always respectful toward her. "Tim can be goofy," she admitted, "but he was never inappropriate with me." Alan's relationships with co-stars have been a mixed bag. Some praised his talent and generosity, while others found him challenging to work with. But among the many colleagues who have spoken about him, one question remains unanswered. Who did Tim Allen dislike the most? Stay tuned to uncover the surprising answer. Tim Allen and Jonathan Taylor. Thomas. a bond broken, or just unfinished business. Tim Allen has had his fair share of clashes with co-stars, but one particular working relationship stands out as the most complicated. While he's never outright expressed deep dislike for any actor, his lingering frustration with Jonathan Taylor Thomas suggests a long-standing tension that went beyond just a simple disagreement. At the height of Home Improvement's success, Allen had taken on a mentor-like role with the young cast, particularly with Thomas, who played his on-screen son, Randy.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, Dad.
Great day today.
Good duel time?
Through the roof.
Their chemistry was undeniable, and for years, it seemed like they had a strong professional bond. However, when Thomas decided to leave the show before its final season, Allen took it personally. He felt blindsided, as if the young star had turned his back on the very show that had catapulted him to fame. In interviews, Allen expressed his disappointment, admitting, "I was a little hurt. I wanted him to know how much we appreciated him, but he had other plans." While he acknowledged that Thomas had every right to make his own career choices, there was an unmistakable undertone of resentment in his words. Allen believed Thomas didn't fully appreciate the impact of his departure, not just on the show but on the cast and crew who had worked alongside him for years. The effects of Thomas's departure weren't limited to private discussions. It created visible ripples on set. As the show entered its final stretch, writers scrambled to rework storylines to explain Randy's absence, and the family dynamic that had once felt effortless now seemed off balance. Allen, never one to hide his emotions, reportedly let his frustration show, creating an underlying tension that other cast members had to navigate carefully. Those who remained on the show sensed the shift. Allen, who was used to leading the ensemble with his larger-than-life personality, now had to adjust to the sudden departure of one of its key members. Some sources even suggested that Allen's attitude made things slightly uncomfortable for others as they tiptoed around the subject of Thomas's absence. But the biggest blow came when the series wrapped in 1999. Fans had hoped to see the entire Taylor family together for a proper farewell, and many assumed Thomas would return for a final appearance. Yet, when the last episode aired, he was nowhere to be seen. Allen later revealed his disappointment, saying, "I thought it was kind of odd. You'd think he'd want to come back and say goodbye." Thomas's decision to skip the finale didn't go unnoticed, and it only seemed to deepen the rift between him and Allen. To Allen, it wasn't just about work, it felt personal. He had invested time in guiding Thomas and believed they had built a strong bond, only for it to unravel without much explanation. Over the years, Allen has spoken about Thomas with a mix of admiration and frustration. He once remarked, "He was probably the most intelligent of the kids on the show. He had a plan, and I just wish he had talked to me about it more." That comment alone reveals that, despite their issues, Allen still held a certain level of respect for Thomas's ambitions. He just wished things had played out differently. In 2013, fans were given a brief glimmer of hope when Thomas made a guest appearance on Last Man Standing, reuniting with Allen on screen for the first time in over a decade. While it was a nostalgic moment for longtime viewers, the underlying question remained: had the tension between them truly disappeared, or was it just a temporary truce? Allen remained professional, but when asked about their past, his responses suggested that the unresolved emotions still lingered. Even though time had passed, their once close working relationship had never fully returned to what it once was. Was it truly a falling out, or just two stars taking different paths? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe.